Hello, where we are listeners. If you're a longtime fan of this podcast or you're just joining us for the first time today, we want to tell you more about our podcast platform called Spotify for Podcasters. We've been using this platform for over a year, and it's been easy to use, and new features are added all the time. You can record and edit podcasts from your phone or computer. You don't need anything fancy, and you don't need previous podcast experience. When you hit publish, you will distribute your podcast to Spotify and everywhere else podcasts are heard. Video podcasts are also available on Spotify if that's your kind of thing. And with Spotify for Podcasters, you can earn money in a variety of ways, including ads and podcast subscriptions. But here's the thing, you can earn money, but it's a free platform. There's no catch. If you're curious or want to see what it's all about, download the Spotify for Podcasters app or go to www.spotify.com/podcasters to get started.
It's that time, dear. What'll you have to drink?
You've had me drinking enough today.
Indeed, indeed. This is Where is the Love? I am Michael Ware.
I'm Alissa Ware.
And we're here. It's a Saturday night, actually a Sunday morning. And we...
have no life.
Well, actually, we're recording this late because we do have a life. We had friends over for dinner tonight. We cooked a wonderful meal.
That's true.
I cooked a wonderful meal. You... moderated a wonderful conversation. The reason why you don't want anything to drink now is because...
You forced me to have Chianti.
I forced you to have Chianti. I forced you to have grappa.
Ugh.
Anything else? Was there something else? Espresso.
Oh, yeah.
Had a wonderful night, but we're committed to you all, our listeners, and so we're here. The morning of the Buffalo Bills divisional game. I know you all have been tracking this with us. I know you're all invested in the Buffalo Bills' success as listeners. It's been a lot of fun to see the ramp up to the game this week. Wolf Blitzer had Coach McDermott on the Situation Room.
Oh, really? I didn't know that. I did not see that.
There's just been Booker T., the former professional wrestler, who is a pretty good friend of mine. When I was in my lanyard wearing days, I sat next to Booker T for an entire arena football game, and we just had a wonderful conversation.
Wait.
Booker T was in a promo video for the Buffalo Bills.
Oh.
So it's like things are ramping up. If we beat the Chiefs tonight, it's going to get crazy. It's going to get insane.
100% agree. Can we return to this, the hype around the Buffalo Bills? I feel like not a lot of people are going to know about your lanyard days. Can you just explain your lanyard days really quickly?
Yes.
Because you can't just bring that up because a lot of people are going to be like, what?
Okay, so I saw a music video for Mo Money, Mo Problems, and thought that it would be within my aesthetical range to wear this is the thing that kills me. I mean, so the whole thing should kill me, but I wore for 6 to 9 months of my life a blue Adidas lanyard, which was the lanyard I could get my hands on, with a Nike, so mixing brands, and blue and black, but a blue Adidas lanyard with a black, not a fedora, it was one of those caps that but I wore it backwards.
The Greatest Generation wore it, yeah.
Well, yeah, the Greatest Generation wore them, but then...
The Michael generation.
Yeah, brought it back.
Yeah. Sure.
And so anyways, this is what I was wearing when I was with Booker T, and I'm sure he still recalls the wonderful conversation.
But yeah, back to the Bills. Let's hope
back
they
to
win.
the Bills. Let's hope they win.
Because otherwise you'll be in a depression hole for like weeks.
Look, I just don't. Yes.
I also want the Bills to win. I love Buffalo Bills. I'm also from Buffalo. Like, don't get me wrong here.
No, it feels like this is the year. And so, yeah. And it would stink to lose to the Chiefs twice.
100%.
So, okay. Well, we're going to try and take our minds off the Bills for this podcast. Thank you for helping us with that. Melissa, anything you want to talk about before we get into the top 5?
Just so you know, it's 12:14 a.m. right now, and therefore Girdle is available.
Yeah, new Girdle. I'm still undefeated. The
peer review is still out, but we're pretty sure
the peer review is still out, but
that Michael is the best at it. Yes.
But I may be gifted.
Yes.
At Girdle. Yes.
Yesterday we had a friend stay over. Every once in a while she stays over and hangs out with us and the kids.
That was a very weird way to...
That's a what?
She's a good friend of yours who stayed over. It was
what?
You made it sound like it was an arrangement. Every once in a while we have someone who stays over and hangs out with us and our kids.
I think it sounds like an arrangement to you, to no one else though.
This is a very good friend. This is a very good friend who comes over often. She was with us.
She was with us at midnight last night.
Cut to the chase.
We all played
Girdle together. And I was the last one, but I got it right. I'm undefeated. And that's all I want to hear about it. All right.
I don't know. Is there anything else that I want to talk about?
No, let's just get to the top 5.
No, that's all. Yeah.
What do we have? What do we have this week?
Yep. So our first article is called A Syllabus for a New World, and it's by Alissa Wilkinson, who we love.
Love Alissa.
Yeah, we just love her writing. She's been at Vox for a while.
Love her cooking.
Yes, her cooking, yes.
Oh, my goodness.
Yes.
This woman cooked me the best pork chop I've ever had in my entire life. Plus, her husband, Tom's a sweetheart. Okay. Yeah. Sorry. On to the article.
Yes. So, Alissa, back in, I think it's 2020, she wrote, I need to find it in the article. Of course, I should have had that. A Syllabus for the End of the World. And so now she's followed up with A Syllabus for a New World, and it's about how art helps us process a lot of the things that have just been going on for the past 2 years with this pandemic. And art being a sort of catharsis or a way of communicating things that can't otherwise be communicated. And a lot of the article goes through the new TV special, or TV show, I guess, Station 11, which is based off of a book that, Michael, you read and you loved.
Yeah, no, I loved it. Yeah, and so... Yes, I love this article. I mean, what I don't think she references it in the article, but Alissa wrote a book on the apocalypse with her friend, our friend, Robert Justra, called How to Survive the Apocalypse, Zombies, Cylons? I don't even know what I read the book, and I don't know what Cylons are. Faith and Politics at the End of the World. Okay, Cylons apparently are from Battlestar, so I feel okay about not knowing what that is. But the book is excellent. And so Alissa has been thinking about apocalypse in art, in life, and so this article this essay gave her the opportunity to revisit the theme, and for Vox, where she's been writing for a while now. And yeah, no, I dug it. Station 11 was an interesting read. I think a lot of people have picked it up during the pandemic. I think a lot of people have stayed away from it during the pandemic. You're one of those people.
I cannot deal with, I cannot watch a lot of things. I mean, I struggled with a movie recently that we watched, the one with Olivia Colman. What's it called? On the Elena Ferrante novel.
The Lost Daughter.
The Lost Daughter. And I struggled through that because, being in the throes of motherhood, I was like, this is too close to things that I'm experiencing. I don't like art reflecting my actual, like, moment-to-moment life right now.
Yeah, and so Station 11, definitely, I mean, it opens, 20 pages in, and you're in a pandemic.
But a pandemic that spreads wildly fast.
Yeah, wildly fast. It is
destructive.
It basically kills everyone that gets it.
Yes.
But it's interesting. The HBO series, I think, so the book was written before the pandemic, which is an interesting thing. I think the book was published maybe like 2017, 2018, something like that. Right. The series, the HBO series, they retool the book quite a bit. I haven't read any interviews or anything, but so I don't know this for sure. I have to think that the retooling was done in order for HBO and the showrunners to feel good about sort of putting this out into the world in the middle of a pandemic. And so the HBO series actually does quite a bit of work in my reading to be a bit more aspirational and hopeful than the book is. The book certainly has some of those notes. The theme of sort of survive, and this is something Alissa picks up on, like surviving alone is not enough. Surviving is insufficient. And the way that art can sort of give life meaning, that's in the book and the movie, or in the series. But the series does quite a bit of work, in my view, to sort of have some brighter tones than the book does. But the book is excellent. It's by Emily St. John Mandel. There's a book that's kind of follow-up. It's sort of in the same world, in the same universe, but isn't a sequel, called, I believe, The Glass Hotel. But yeah, the series just wrapped up maybe in the last few weeks. And I enjoyed it. I know you sort of came in on a few episodes and just couldn't do the pandemic vibes. Yeah.
Yeah, but I just want to quote something in the article. This is the part of what Alissa writes that really resonated with me. She says, but real hope, not the kind politicians talk about, but the kind that keeps you alive, requires something other than violence and forgetting. To put in Hannah Arendt's terms, living well, perhaps living at all, requires amor mundi, or love of the world, the commitment to see the world, not as we imagine it to be, but as it really is, and to love it anyhow. Truly living means being willing to understand how we got here and where we could go, to face our anxieties and agree together that mere survival is not sufficient. And she ends this sort of idea with this: art can give us binoculars to see in both directions. In parentheses, Arendt dubbed art an oasis, a place to catch our breath and replenish our souls. And for me, I've seen this a lot in my professional life, taking art to talk about really difficult things, really traumatic things, really complex things. A lot of the work that I did for a while was about bringing shows that talked about just stuff that if you sat around a dinner table or you sat around a boardroom and tried to talk about it, you'd get probably very sort of ideological, just sort of disputes going on in those conversations. I remember in particular, we brought this play over from the UK that when I was working with the British Council, called Grounded. And it was a single female acted show where it's this woman who is a drone operator, and it's about her experience of being a drone operator, about what it's like to drop bombs on places from thousands of miles away. And the conversations it would bring up afterwards from anybody who was sitting in that audience talking about the sort of morality surrounding drone warfare at a time in which the sort of conversation around drone warfare in the media and in politics was just sort of very, it's a necessity, or, it's absolutely horrific and we should not do it. But this showed it from the perspective of the person actually taking orders and executing on those orders.
Yeah.
And what that does to a person and their psyche and sort of their day-to-day life, and how they carry that kind of death with them from thousands of miles away. It was fascinating to see just general audience discuss it afterwards, and the thoughts that it brought about and the ideas it brought about, and how it was able to create dialogue on a very controversial, complex topic. And so I'm glad that Alissa pulls that out, about how art can help us process difficult things.
Yeah, when I was at the White House, I had the opportunity to do some work and visit with students that were part of a wonderful nonprofit in D.C. called Life Pieces to Masterpieces. And one of the main sort of thrusts of the nonprofit was this idea that by providing sort of access to the arts and environments in which young people who had seen some and been through some really traumatic experiences and couldn't quite process those experiences, they used art as a way to help these kids cope and help these kids work through stuff that would be difficult for adults to stuff that is difficult for adults to work through. And I remember being incredibly moved to spend time. So I think that's really valid. I think another thing Alissa sort of pulls on here are the ways in which we try to find or give meaning to our lives in serious times.
Yes.
And how we consider what is meaningful, and all of the distractions that the internet, she spends quite a deal of time talking about sort of the internet and just sort of the constant sort of saturation of messages and ideas and distractions, and sort of the anxiety that produces, and the sort of false meaning it offers. She also talks about sort of productivity and accumulation as another form of as another sort of route people go for meaning. And I kind of want to use that to transition. I actually hadn't made this connection until sort of we got into this conversation. But Yair Rosenberg for The Atlantic wrote an essay called "Your Bubble is Not the Culture," which seems to me to pull on some of these same threads.
Especially because what he's talking about is a lot of culture critics, and how they kind of form the narrative, and sort of what is going on when you take huge pop culture phenomenons that most people love, or keep on coming back to again and again, and yet the critics with newspapers or other online publications or on Twitter sort of pan that piece of pop culture, or take a look back at it and say actually it wasn't that great after all, or that the creator of that is destructive, or different things like that.
Yeah, and so like the main examples he uses here are Harry Potter, Lin-Manuel Miranda, Parks and Rec, and he pulls up some sort of cultural criticism that are sort of these publications, some more niche than others, but sort of what he what he sort of relates as sort of cultural criticism from a bubble. And he pulls out these excerpts of people saying, the fall of Hamilton and its creator and star. An Insider article said there is no good way to introduce Harry Potter to the next generation. The Ringer on Lin-Manuel Miranda. It's hard to think of a popular entertainer who suffered a starker whiplash in critical regard over the past decade. He's cringe. But then goes on, Rosenberg goes on to actually relate like how these people are doing. And of course, Lin-Manuel Miranda, his soundtrack for Encanto, the new Disney film, is the number one album on the Billboard 200, displacing Adele. Miranda's Tick Tick Boom is nominated for all kinds of awards.
Such a good movie.
It was a great movie. It's hard to do musicals well, and they did a really good job. J.K. Rowling, of course, is the author of under the pseudonym. She's the author of the Cormoran Strike detective series, which is an international bestseller. The Harry Potter store opened in New York. HBO is running several specials commemorating 20 years of Harry Potter. The new fascinating. What's the fascinating?
Fantastic Beasts.
Fantastic Beasts. The third one is coming out and will probably be a smash at the box office like other. And so just on and on. He even Parks and Rec had a reunion episode that did just as well as Parks and Rec did when it was on the air, and was the number one show in its time slot. And so he really points out this sort of dichotomy, not just in sort of the. Here's the thing. I think there are some iterations of this. There has long been a separation between, and he touches on this a bit. There's long been a separation between sort of what critics think is good art,
yes,
and what the masses
yes.
approve of.
Yes.
And in that sense, I think one of the primary values a critic brings is a more critical eye, to art. And more. So like, I don't know if I want to, that sort of separation, though it can certainly be overdone, and he talks about sort of, critics not viewing a Marvel film for what it's supposed to be, and that kind of thing. But I think critics, that's one of the reasons why I read critics, to get sort of an eye from someone who understands movies, art better than I do, the history of it. I love reading and figuring out like how they shot different scenes. That stuff I would never pick up on.
Yep, 100%.
But what he seems to be zeroing on here is sort of critics trying to sort of inflate the meaning of their own work and sort of make it political.
Yes.
As if they're doing politics proper through art criticism.
Yes.
And he's very nuanced. He talks about the ways in which criticism should consider the political aspects of art. But I was really interested by his argument that that critics sort of can want to, quote, justify their existence and significance by... actually, I'll read this excerpt. Everyone wants to believe they're saving the world, myself included. I noted earlier that I went into journalism rather than film criticism because I felt vaguely embarrassed about pursuing something less socially significant. I suspect some actual critics feel similarly conflicted about their work. Watching movies and television for a living can seem privileged and indulgent compared to other vocations, especially in a world on fire. But once you start treating TV and film as politics, suddenly the project feels far more consequential. And he goes on to describe sort of this sort of imposing political debates on works of art can be, doesn't necessarily have to be, but can be sort of a sign of critics. And I'd argue people generally, especially like the chattering classes, a way to sort of invest, a way to sort of make their take seem more significant than it really is.
100%. That you've just pulled out the entire point of the article where when I read this, I said, oh, this is such a great argument. This is exactly what's going on, not just in sort of art criticism, but in a lot of different areas, like taking things and applying political lenses that might not be the best lens, might not be the best analysis.
Yes.
I think basically people are going to some kind of school and learning the school of Twitter or whatever, the school of online, and learning, oh, you need to apply politics as a lens to every single thing, and it's the number one lens. It's the best lens to use no matter what. And like, I'm kind of always pulling my hair out going, that might not always be true.
And so, right, so critically, what this looks like is watching Lin-Manuel Miranda, the latest production film, whatever, and having in your mind, oh, how does this relate to criticism of Hamilton as actually regressive? Mm-hmm. Because that's what sort of the chattering classes argue now. The problem is that not most people who are familiar with Hamilton, that's not their view of it. If you look at sort of, where it is on the Billboard charts, the fact that it's incredibly salient in a positive way in the broader culture. And it's not clear that the artist is responding to that criticism. And so you end up imposing a lens on these things that neither the general audience that it's intended for, nor like the makers of the art themselves are necessarily thinking of or responding to. That can be distortive. But then there's also this distortion of like thinking that exactly what you said, Melissa, that to politicize something, is inherently to make something more meaningful. When mm-hmm. often when we see these kinds of things, I think it ends up actually trivializing it and actually taking away meaning. But it also, has a distortive effect of its own. Yeah, you know what? So this is just me. It is just my own thoughts here, and like kind of maybe doing armchair psychology here, but it's an interesting dynamic of what's going on right now. I think humans have always gone through sort of cultural cycles where you lift up something for a while and then suddenly somebody says, oh, that's gauche, or that's, cringe, as we say now. I don't like that anymore. And everybody lines up and says, oh, yes, that's cringe, that's cringe. It's like you look at people look back on an outfit they wore 10 years ago and they go, I can't believe I even wore that. And then, 10 years from now, they're going to look back on the outfit they're wearing today and say, oh my gosh, I hate that, because of trends and things like that. People want to be different and unique, and they want to be the first ones there to say, like, oh, I think Parks and Rec is actually not that smart or not that funny, or The Office. The Office is constantly getting attacked now as well as not being that funny or whatever. I think it's that type of thinking and behavior, but then also now you're just using politics as a sort of like lens through which to actually communicate that, to make it sound more sophisticated, when it's just kind of like, yeah, things come into trend and then they go out. That's just how a lot of cultural stuff has always been. Yeah. Yeah, and it's I just think we should be look, we don't need to get into a sort of broader argument of mine in depth here, but I've argued for a long time that it's actually when you when we go to politics, or I guess in these cases, sort of take politics into places where it's not necessarily meant to be, or it can't sort of carry the burden that we're seeking to place on it. It's not just that you're it's not just an argument about sort of, like let people enjoy their Disney movie or whatever.
Sure.
Though there is that, like there is just like the
let people live.
Goodness, let people live. Exactly right. But there's also, I actually think people do great harm to the very causes they think that they're advancing. So when you try to advance a political cause through means and using tactics through sort of mediums that are just not meant to sort of enact sort of political decisions, you often end up trivializing your own cause by trying to like import its meaning into everything. And I think we see that like quite a bit now. Like I think we see quite a bit like, oh, you're gonna criticize like a sitcom for not living up to your political standards. Well, maybe it's not the sitcom that's the problem. Maybe it's your political standards. And all of a sudden, things that should be taken, in many cases, more seriously, end up getting trivialized because some of the main boosters of them bring traffic their causes into every sort of conversation and sort of area that they see the opportunity for. And so I really appreciated this Rosenberg article.
Yeah,
I thought
it's a
it was
part
really
of his
great.
Newsletter.
Yeah,
for The Atlantic.
Yeah, they made it available for.
Yeah, it's very nice
for folks to read without subscribing. And so we'll, as always, we'll share these articles in the episode notes. We're so grateful, as always, for you all listening. Would urge you to share the podcast if you enjoy it. Leave us a review on iTunes. Subscribe at reclaiminghope.substack.com. And it's been so great to be able to hear feedback from listeners every week. Louise, Miss Louise, who is just the most wonderful person, does a number of things, including leading a children's ministry at our church. Said that she listened to our first episode. She has an amazing podcast herself.
It's called Pray and Ponder, and it's really wonderful for your kids. It's a 10-minute podcast. You basically
listen with your kids.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
It's like, it's a wonderful like gospel word delivered in such an ironic, penetrating way by, again, like the sweetest person. Miss Louise said that she's expecting me to sing "Where Is the Love."
Do you want to do that?
No, not tonight. It's too late. But maybe.
Everybody, the crowd is disappointed.
Yeah, I know. Well, if Miss Louise asks, she'll get it at some point, just not tonight. But and so we love hearing from listeners. Melissa, anything else you wanna close with?
No, I'm good.
We'll just leave them with a "Go Bills" and leave it at that.
Yes. Hopefully by the time that some people are listening to this, they will know that the Buffalo Bills have won.
No, in your souls that the Buffalo Bills have won.
Defeated the Chiefs.
Yeah. All right.
Mahomes, all the people who play for them.
Mahomes. Yeah, Mahomes.
I said Mahomes. What? Is it Mahomes?
Just Mahomes.
Mahomes? Oh. Guys, I I don't listen to any, not listen, I don't watch any football team but the Buffalo Bills. Like, I don't know who plays for anybody else. All I know is that guy has so many commercials.
He does. When we beat him in the playoffs, Josh Allen replaces Mahomes in all the State Farm commercials. That should be on the line for this game. All right. Hey, this is Where is the Love? I'm Michael Ware.
I'm Alissa Ware.
So good to be with you. Talk to you soon. You gotta do the...
I'm looking at you with a blank stare. Bye.
The people will miss it.
I'm sure it's their favorite part.